Bringing you more exciting news, Show and Tell has returned for an actual physical reprint. Although this card is a legacy staple and it's very hard to come by, it's nice to see it in this set. For drafting purposes in multiplayer formats, this is going to be pretty wacky as it's going to be putting a permanent onto play on everyone's side. If you do play Legacy, you may want to consider either buying some copies or actually trying to draft this thing. Avatar of Woe also makes a comeback in this set, and this card's actually a pretty sweet card for a lot of EDH decks. However, it just seems kind of wacky because its other cycle pieces from Prophecy are nowhere to be seen. Berserk also makes a comeback, but honestly, Berserk really isn't a card that I really expected to see in a set like this. Plus, it's kind of sad there isn't anything in this set like Darksteel Colossus. This way, cards like Berserk and Show and Tell would be a lot more scary. Moving on to a sweet mana doubler, we have the Regal Behemoth. This not only is a mana doubler, but it also makes you the Monarch, which can potentially give you some extra cards while doubling your mana in the process. The thing you just have to keep in mind is this is only for you, so your opponents may just want to put a target on your head due to the fact that you're going to get so much mana the turn after you play it. As if Clone wasn't good enough, we have the new card Stunt Double, which, well, it's just Clone with Flash. I'm not sure why we didn't think of this sooner, considering Clone has seen incredibly little play in constructed formats, and there are several other alternatives you could have played in pretty much any constructed format that would be better for some reason. Clone, while not a terrible card, will probably never see play again now that this is a thing. Subterranean Tremors seems like Earthquake with, well, an extra kicker, or I guess you could say it gives you extra bonuses depending on how big your Earthquake is. Sadly, it only damages creatures, but usually that's not going to be too much of a complaint considering you're likely going to get quite a few bonuses out of it depending on how late the game has gone. Seems like it could see some potential in other decks outside of the draft format that it was made for, and a giant lizard is not too much to complain about. Moving on to the theme of recreating legends when we don't need to recreate legends, we have Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. This is a green creature that could potentially provide a ton of value, considering green loves to play big creatures. This will likely see some play in someone's EDH deck, allowing you to obtain the mana you need to cast a gigantic creature and then draw some cards in the process. Oddly enough, there's actually a mechanic I haven't really gone over very much, but it's mainly because I don't really think the cards that are in it are really that spectacular. This mechanic is the melee mechanic, and honestly, I feel like most of the time it's usually going to give you a glorious Anthem-like effect, especially if you play constructed matches one-on-one. In multiplayer games, it can really give you a significant boost, but you really are going to have to spread out the damage, so if you're essentially trying to take out a particular opponent, it's going to be kind of hard to, because you're, dividing your damage among everybody. This is why I'm not a big fan of this mechanic, because it's essentially, making everyone at the table more mad, considering you're just, attacking everybody. The only way I really see this mechanic really being used in Constructed, or, in any game with multiple people, is when you're trying to make an alpha strike. This is actually quite nifty in these situations, because there have been several situations on my behalf where I have wanted to take out multiple people at once using combat damage. The other problem with the melee creatures is that most of them don't have some sort of evasion. I mean, it would be really good, and we probably would be willing to pay a little bit extra for that little extra kicker, but sadly they're, not too difficult to block. Aside from that, the rest of the cards in the set really are, reprints of, pretty solid Magic cards. I won't say it's anything super valuable or anything, but they're basically cards that really would come in handy for just about any player and almost any skill set. When you really think about it, this set's kind of like a core set that will never be played in Standard. On a final note, it's kind of a shame that this set, was intended to be made for multiplayer drafts, because a lot of these cards that would not be allowed in Standard or Modern would be an absolute blast to play in Standard or Modern. Aside from those draft-only cards with special benefits that will never see play in Constructed Magic ever. If you do go drafting with this set, I hope you have fun, because a lot of the cards you will never be able to use again afterward, unless you intend to somehow repackage your draft and play it again with your friends. Overall, I think I'm going to give this set a C+. I do like the idea of multiplayer drafts, but at the same time I really dislike the idea of having a bunch of cards that you will never be able to use outside of draft. However, if you're a big fan of queued drafts, a lot of these draft-only cards may be appealing to you. They may add a nice, exciting twist to your draft rounds. There are also several great classic reprints in the set that are actually quite sought after, so if you are interested in playing an older format like Vintage, Legacy, and even Modern, there probably are going to be some cards that are dropping in price that you'll be able to obtain pretty easily. If you thought voting for Time Warps and permanent stealing was ridiculous, how about voting for a Tooth and Nail? Oh, brother.